You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 96 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my podcast. Oh, starting off great. Partner in crime, writer, journalist, blogger, TV personality, Jessica Szilagyi.
Really, Dave? I mean, how long have you been doing this?
Ooh, at least 50 episodes.
Really?
It's more than 50. It's been over a year.
Wow. That's right. I forgot about your holiday episodes last year.
That had to be re-recorded because I couldn't pronounce anything.
Just like tonight.
Except I'm sober this time.
Congratulations. How was your week?
Cold.
Yes.
It was cold last week. How about you?
Well, it was hot. It was 80 and then it was 45. So, you know, I've been improperly dressed for about 2 months now.
Well, here's the thing about, what I do. I've got to be outside enough to dress for the outside, and I've got to be inside working enough to. And when it's cold out, if you sweat, it's horrible for you because the wind just cuts through you. So I'll go inside somewhere, work up a sweat, go back outside, wearing 15 layers of clothing, and freeze to death. So poor me.
We're all praying for you.
So, in an update to Cheekgate 2019, the butt slapper from the story last week in Savannah has been charged with sexual battery, and the reporter has retained Gloria Allred.
One thing at a time. Those are two very different things to digest. So, when we first talked about the story and as it was unfolding, I mean, there was so much coming out, so much information coming out, and I didn't really know. I mean, arguably, I just read different headlines and, summaries. I hadn't really looked into it. But then, and I think I mentioned that the guy was from Statesboro. But the reporter, obviously it happened on live TV and everybody saw it and she made a statement about it. But the police actually said, there was no report filed initially, I think for like a day or two or maybe even more. But initially she said they just put out a statement saying, we're more than willing to work with this reporter if she so chooses to press charges. And I guess then she opted to, which I'm not criticizing that because I think there would be equal criticism if she had done it right away. Because people would be like, oh, she didn't even, she just made a rash decision and did it. But the whole thing just sucks.
All right, let's get her quote here. To the man who smacked my butt on live TV this morning, you violated, objectified, and embarrassed me. No woman should ever have to put up with this at work or anywhere. The dude wasn't right. Keep your hands to yourself. I don't care if you tapped her on the top of the head or on the back or anything else. I mean, just keep your hands to yourself. Mm-hmm. If you don't know somebody. But she's flying that victim flag pretty high with the violated, objectified, and embarrassed me. I'll go with the last two, especially the last one, the embarrassed, inappropriate. Objectified, probably. Violated, man, it's a strong word because they're.
See, now, I have a bigger problem with objectified than violated because violated, like, I agree he violated her personal space. You don't touch people. I mean, from that perspective, I can get it. Objectified, I can't get on board with that.
I'm used to walking in places and having people treat me like a piece of meat. I mean, it's just you have to get used to it if you're in the media like I am.
Mm-hmm. God bless it. Dave Roberts, y'all. the media standard. I actually saw the article that came out last week. It was talking about the most influential people of 2019 in the media, and I wasn't surprised to see your name on the list. But
absolutely. I mean, I'm really angry at Greta Thunberg for taking my Person of the Year award.
Maybe Eric will make one for you.
But she can move her eyebrows in such a way that I can't. I mean, she's got the John Belushi skills. Anyway.
Lord.
The charges of, and it's a misdemeanor, sexual battery, but this guy is risking having to register as a sex offender.
Well, and so the internet, which is the most reliable place to get information, and I'm talking specifically about the comment section, which is absolutely the most reliable place you can get information. Somebody said that this is the standard charge, and it absolutely meets the definition of sexual battery in Georgia. So let's say that's true. And then let's say that he shows up to court and they allow him to plead down to it because he pays restitution and he's been apologetic and he, has to pay a fine and do community service and all these other things. What do you plead down to? Simple assault? I mean, what is the...
Well,
because in my opinion, the guy's number one priority should be not having to register as a sex offender. Like, I wouldn't care what you have to charge me. I don't want to be a sex offender.
Okay, so I don't know if I've told the story on the show before, but I was talking to a prosecutor friend, and he, I guess, has to sign off on warrants after somebody's arrested. The case comes to him, and he signs off on it, or he drops the charges. The case was, these group of people were sitting around drinking, and one guy smacks another guy's wife in the butt. And the husband turns around, and pops him. One time, in the face, knocks him down. Someone calls the police, he gets arrested, and he dropped the charges because it seemed like a measured response. It was totally appropriate. He didn't hop on top of him, beat the snot out of the guy. It was a measured response to an inappropriate action. I asked Connie, what would she do? And she said, I'd probably, if it's somebody I didn't know, turn around and punch him, hit him in the face. And so that's an absolutely valid response. Not everything is a litigious matter. I mean,
I'm sure a civil suit is next. That's what's terrible.
Not just that. I mean, the guy's embarrassed. His name, he's been outed. He's embarrassed. I don't think at this point that hauling him to jail, getting him a $1,500 bail, wasting the court's time so that they can plead it down to something that hopefully doesn't involve that. And he'll spend no time in jail. He'll pay some fine and spend some short time on probation. And I don't think this guy needs to be in jail, because I'm fairly certain the news is punishment enough, and that he's never going to do it again. There's no reason for him to be a burden on the taxpayers for even if it's a week in jail, because the recidivism is going to be very, very low on this guy. In fact, I don't think he's probably going to ask himself before he touches his own butt.
Right.
I mean, I don't see. It was $1,300 bail. I don't see this guy reoffending.
I agree with that. I don't think he's a predator. All these people these internet and social justice warriors and everything are saying, a normal person doesn't just do that. He has this in him. This is his personality. Like, Lord only knows what else he's done, and just all of that. Well, I do think that if there were other things he had done, we'd know by now, because they put out I saw one article on Heavy that was like 5 things you need to know about the man who slapped reporters behind on TV. And it had everything from like where he went to school and how long he'd been married, and his LinkedIn background, all this stuff that
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't see anything sexual about it. I also played center So I got that treatment about 50 times every football game. His quarterback come behind me, smack my ass, let me know he's back there, so I can get ready to snap the ball to him. So I mean, that means Tom Brady in his 20-something years. I mean, you talk about a repeat offender. Who knows how many butts he slapped? I don't find it inherently sexual. Now you flip it around and you grab the front side. Absolutely, that's inherently sexual.
Okay, if you flip it around and a woman does that to a man, is it inherently sexual?
No, I mean, if you want to get into the Matt Lowe doctrine of if you're going to be if you're going to be equal, but no, I mean, just no. I mean, I've had women who I'm not involved with smack my ass. I mean, it's just not a thing. I mean, I'm usually not running a marathon because I'm never running a marathon. It's just not a thing, man. I don't know. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Now, if I'm walking by a woman and she, holds her hand on my ass, just like the same thing. If it still doesn't make it appropriate to smack somebody's ass you don't know. But if you hold your hand there, now you're groping. Now we've graduated. So I don't know. Like I said, I am a huge defender of one, not touching people that you don't know, and two, of you don't lay a hand on a woman. I see it as inappropriate. I think it would have been totally appropriate to for somebody to punch the guy in the mouth and teach him not to do it. Man, sexual battery, even misdemeanor sexual battery, is a bit much. And getting to the second point, she really telegraphed where she is on this when she got in touch with Gloria Allred, or vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, Gloria Allred definitely has the reputation for wanting to perpetuate things well beyond their window of publicity, I guess you could say.
Well, she's an activist. She's an activist with a law degree. And whenever I hear Gloria Allred is associated with something, I don't discredit somebody's claims automatically, but let's get that huge grain of salt out here, because it's worth a second look if Gloria Allred is involved in it. I'm not saying I don't trust her and that she has an agenda, but I don't trust her because she has an agenda. Mm-hmm. And these are our opinions, and not necessarily those all in Georgia, because Dave just insulted a lawyer with a lot of money and a lot of power who can destroy anybody she wants.
Right, so if anything there's an issue, just sue Dave directly, please. I got lots of other problems. Yeah,
I mean, go ahead, Dave Roberts, Dr. Cool, Dallas, Georgia. Come on after me. I mean, hell, we could use the press. I might just go smacking a reporter's ass, just get the press.
Lord.
So, the story of the week. There's no way anyone hasn't heard about this at this point. That All on Georgia reporter Casey Bryant was at a Chattooga County commission meeting preparing to video when the wife of Sole Commissioner Jason Winters dumped an entire drink on her head.
Yes.
My
That's
God,
correct.
Man.
So this happened 2 Fridays ago now. And the meeting was supposed to start at 11 a.m. And meetings are a big deal in Chattooga County because with a sole commissioner, it's basically like a king or a czar. They don't have to vote on anything because it's just one vote. So it basically operates on executive order. So the only time there are public meetings are when there's a tax increase and you have to advertise the millage rate and you give a public hearing, or when there's a budget. So this was a hearing for a budget, and I guess, if you can't tell from the video or from the pictures that you've seen, it's a small area because it's just one commissioner. There's not podiums or, I guess like a large, I don't know what you would call it, but it's just a conference table in a small room with some chairs behind it. And so everyone was gathered around the conference table and a few other chairs, and Casey had set her camera up and was sitting there just talking to the lady next to her. The meeting was supposed to start at 10, and at 11, excuse me. And at 10:57, Miss Abby Winters just walked up behind Casey and dumped her entire Big Gulp size Coke on top of Casey. And there is video of it that shows what happened, but that was not, obviously our view was, from our equipment, was facing Jason Winters, so it was in front of Casey, but it was turned over. The other one was turned over. I think it was taken by the radio station and turned over to the police up there. And you can hear all this chaos in the video. Basically, Casey says, it's like everyone's like, why was she talking about France? But you can hear Casey say, is this because I said something about France? And you hear Abby say, yes, bitch. And she's talking about how Casey deserved it. And then you see the video of Jason Winters saying, she brought this on herself. She deserved it. And then somebody, I believe a county employee, escorted Abby Winters out of the office into a private office because, how inappropriate. And just about everyone in the room, from my understanding, was upset. Somebody called the police because they were worried it was going to escalate even more. And the police responded and took a report, and Casey just gathered her belongings and went and sat in her car because she was so mortified that this had happened. And when she called me right after it happened. I missed her call, and she's like, call me ASAP. And I called her back, and it took me several minutes to digest that this actually happened, because I've seen a lot of things at government meetings. I've seen stupid behavior and yelling and arguing, and I've seen the police called. I've never had the police called on me, but I've seen the police get called for various reasons, but never something like this. I know it happened. I watched it happen. You see the Coke splash in the video. I know Casey. I've seen pictures, all of it, but you're still like, what? Because Abby Winters is 35.
And Casey, you obviously know her better than I do. She's your colleague. You guys work together. I've had an opportunity to speak with her once or twice, but she's a classy individual and not nearly as abrasive as, our own Jessica Szilagyi. And you're not abrasive, but you're very straightforward with stuff.
The difference here is that Casey, Chattooga County's All on Georgia market is built entirely on positive media of the students and the school system and the coaches and the community leaders. There's very few that you can report on when you have a sole commissioner, and because they don't release a lot of information, and so that has limited what has been reported on Jason Winters. There have been, I think, 7 All on Georgia articles on Jason Winters over the last 4 years that it's been a thing up there, and half of them were written by me. So it's not like Casey was just hammering away at him over and over and over for months on end and just making his life a living hell. And the social media post that she made about him that supposedly prompted this irrational behavior by Abby Winters is that she posted a meeting reminder about the meeting the following day and said, fresh off his trip from Paris, Jason Winters is ready to discuss the budget or something like that. But that's all she said. It wasn't like and then, so apparently there were some commenters who made, a couple suggestions that there was a misappropriation of funds or misuse of funds. And so it just perpetuated from there. Well, here's a news flash for the Winters family. The courts have ruled over and over. And I think there's a, statute in federal law from the 90s, which when the internet quote started, that says, organizations are not responsible for the comments made on a website, on social media or anything. So, if I was held responsible for what my commenters said, I'd be in jail over and over and over.
Oh, I was about to say that exactly. They have to take you a world of coke and dump stuff on your head for what people.
That's right. I mean.
And look, it's worth the price of admission to follow Jessica and read the comments. It really is worth the price of admission. I'm not disparaging. I'm just saying that you can't be held responsible for the smart ass comments I make on your posts.
Right, and she shouldn't be. But her posts. I mean, it was a little bit. Sure, she was. I interpret. I don't know what her intention was, but I interpreted that the county's struggling. It has been struggling. They've seen tax increase after tax increase after tax increase to the tune of 25% or so each time. And the commissioner is coming back from a vacation in Paris. I mean, we've all made comments like that. There's nothing inappropriate about that. If that's her opinion, that's how she feels. If it's not her opinion, if she felt something more strong, like none of it warrants bringing someone into your personal space. So
no, it never. Let's be clear, it never does. Even if she was hammering him over and over and over and tracking him on social media and posting up every picture check-in he has at the Louvre and at the Eiffel Tower and say, the Winters say let them eat cake, whatever. It doesn't matter. You two, not me, are the fourth estate.
Well, I told her, I said, it doesn't matter if you looked him in the eye 45 seconds before it happened and called him, get ready, Eric, a hole to his face. You don't get to do what he did. That's still her opinion, whether she's there as the media or a citizen or whatever. I mean, the courts and the First Amendment do not distinguish between the press and the people. The people are the press and the press is the people. Like, it's the same for everyone, and it's broad.
But we hold the press in a certain esteem. When we
sure.
to hold our elected officials accountable, and there is a very distinct line in what we do. I'm not a journalist. I'm an opinion guy. I can't even say I read other people's words because I don't do that very well. You're a journalist, but when you come on the show, and if you do an opinion piece, it'll say opinion next to it. The press is held has a special place in our form of government, and it has to, and that's what keeps us separated from Russia, from China, is that we have a free press. Our press can call a commissioner, a name. They can call the president a name. They can say whatever they want as long as it's not, libelous. Because we give you that freedom to do it.
No, you didn't give it to me. You uphold it. It was given to me already.
Right. Well, that's true.
I feel like I can't even, I'm not trying to be argumentative. Like, I just feel that strongly about it. It's so absurd and obnoxious, and this was completely unjustified and unacceptable, and it infuriates me for Casey that it happened to her.
Well, and that's why I'm saying what she said about him being in France, or what somebody else said about him, that is totally immaterial to the argument.
Right.
Now, I blame the husband. Because you have to know, if you get a trailer park at home, you need to leave her at home. If she's the kind of girl that's going to get into a bar fight because someone's looking at her man, you need to go ahead and chain her to the radiator if you're going to a public meeting, because you can't take her in public.
Well, and if you watch the video that's on All on Georgia, you can see the smirk on his face a number of times before it happens, because I think there's like a minute and a half of video. They clearly didn't think that the video was already running, because, well, I'll get to that in a second, but the video is running about a minute and a half before it happens, and you can see him look at her at least 3 times and nod and like eye in Casey's direction, like go ahead, and he just had this grin on his face that he knew exactly what was about to happen. And, like I said, I don't think they anticipated the video already being on or whatever, because they left. Casey went to her car. They left and immediately went to the county attorney's office to, quote, seek legal counsel when somebody called the police. And the police responded to the commission office, spoke to everybody, got the video, took reports, took statements, and then spoke to the Winters, and they claimed that it was a big misunderstanding, and she tripped and spilled the drink on Casey when she tripped. It was an accident. Well, I've never concluded an accident by saying, yes,
Well, yeah. I mean, it was the context, and it was the you deserve it. It was the you deserved it, and yeah. What is this? Is this for? Yes, yeah. The week of Christmas, we're gonna have nothing but bleeps. Sorry, Santa. Mm-hmm. So 5 days later. So this happens on Friday the 13th.
Well, hold on. You forgot that they charged her with a crime. They charged Abby Winters with simple battery and disorderly conduct, and had her turn herself in. Told her she could have till the end of the day to turn herself in. She stopped at the hair salon, had her hair blown out, took a couple selfies with her hairstylist, and then showed up to have her picture taken
and she
with a big old cheese.
Yeah, she treated it like glamour shots.
That's right.
She looked like she left the trailer park to go to the mall to get her glamour shot taken, and she had a big old doo-doo eating grin on her face. This is not a woman who is sorry because she tripped. I mean, I don't know what the hell is wrong. I mean, I do. I mean, look, I've dated crazy women. You don't marry the crazy ones. I mean, I get it. I mean, I understand the crazy woman thing, but man, she's like you pointed out, 35 years old. She's between your age and my age, mm-hmm. And I consider both of us grown ass adults.
Yes.
Like, I haven't thrown a punch in anger in God knows how long. I mean, you grow out of that. I mean, I would obviously defend myself, but I haven't popped somebody in the mouth in God knows how long.
Right.
I don't know if they just got done on their flight back over from Paris. They were watching the in-flight entertainment, and it was a marathon of Real Housewives of Los Angeles or whatever the hell's on, and you just keep seeing them throw drinks at each other, and you think that's appropriate. I don't know. See, I want to go to the next meeting he has with a Big Gulp cup on my head held on with elastic strap, and just go in and sit down.
Well, I don't think she'll be coming to any more meetings.
No, but he will.
Sure.
And give me an All on Georgia shirt, and I'll just go ahead and put the cup on my head and sit there and smile at him.
Well,
and when he throws me out of the meeting, at least that'll make news.
It will, and I think that the smugness is what really it's really what frustrated me about the whole thing, because, yeah.
It's gonna be hard to prove, but he should at least be charged with it.
Yes, and they lied after the fact. I mean, they lied to the police. They lied. It wasn't. I don't think they knew there was a video when they made those statements to the police. But
I'm sorry, officer. I didn't know there was proof.
Right, but if it wouldn't have made it okay at all. It's never okay. It would never be okay. But if they would have said, I lost my cool and I flipped my lid in a meeting and I'm sorry, I still would have thought that she was trash, and I still would condemn what she did. But it would be hard to keep this going. But the smugness and the mugshot and the taking of photos of when you intentionally humiliated somebody because of internet comments, I there's no room for me to ever respect her again. And, I think they thought this was a big joke that was just going to go away, and Casey would be the one that was humiliated, and maybe she'd stop riding in Chattooga County. I don't know what they were thinking was going to happen. They clearly didn't think very far past 11 a.m. because, initially, like I said, they took selfies and Team Abby was a hashtag, and they're all like, saying that they're going to have a party at the jail and sharing those Coke pictures that said share a Coke with Casey and all this garbage. But come Monday morning when the national media picked up the story and it's on Huffington Post and the New York Times is calling them and us, but blowing up the Winters house, they got people knocking on their door. The nursing board's now aware of what Abby did because she has criminal charges pending against her. It's not so funny anymore. And her team isn't defending her anymore. And people around the nation know who Jason Winters is in Chattooga County, which is basically Tennessee, population like nothing. And they know what happened. The Daily Mail from London reported on this.
And you know what? Our lawmakers going into session in 2 weeks knows about it too. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be key in another point coming up. But, she is just trailer park trash from a nothing county. And, of course, I'm talking about Abby Winters. It's just trailer park trash. That's just classic mommy and daddy knew each other their entire lives because they grew up in the same house. Trash.
Right.
And, it is a great mugshot. I mean, if you really want your mugshot to be your profile pic, there you go.
Yeah, she thought it was funny, and she thought it was going to be funny and stay funny. And, she's got exactly what she asked for, I think. She wanted this to be humiliating. It's just...
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. So... her husband doubles down 5 days later and says that cameras will no longer be allowed in the meeting chambers.
No, in the building as a whole.
In violation of, I'm guessing half dozen laws, including the Georgia Open Meetings Act.
Well, they're saying they're going to make an exception for meetings, but the problem comes in where they want to check your stuff before you come in. First of all, the policy doesn't say anything about phones and tablets, and all of our phones and tablets have video on them these days, but
Well, right, but you can't. Again, transparency. I mean, we have a right to know what's going on in our government. What's kind of crappy is with the backing that they have with that little community, is there aren't any constituents to complain about it. Oh, and I was looking for a name earlier, and I don't know how I couldn't think of it. Pablo Escobar. One of the things that got him in trouble was not running a drug cartel. It was taking a mugshot with a doo-doo eating grin. And that's why he couldn't get elected to Colombia's parliament. Was that came up, was when he got busted for trafficking, he just had this big grin because he knew he was going to get away with it. And that was the thing that eventually led to his downfall within the country, was this free piece of propaganda he gave out to the government. So that's going backwards a little bit, but that's, obviously I can't credit her with having any grasp of history. So anyway, back on the video is, we have a right to know what's going on in our government. We have a right to know what's going on inside City Hall, or inside the county building.
And if you're not going to if you're going to put up metal detectors and send something through a belt, fine. I've been to places that do that. They, it's like a courthouse, whatever. That's fine. But there's not a chance in hell that I'm walking into a commission meeting, opening up my purse for the county clerk or some public works director, some random person, so they can roll my equipment around in their hands and figure out, if it's okay or not. And that was another part, was that Jason Winter said that it was his discretion as to whether or not, the cameras would be allowed and this, that, and the other. Nobody. The law is clear. The federal courts have ruled on it as well. You can take a camera. If I want to walk in the front door with a camera rolling and start asking questions, I have every right to do that. As long as I am not trying to, go beyond, back to his office and snoop in the checkbooks and things like that, or be disruptive. But if I want to walk in holding a camera and record every interaction, I have the right to do that, especially because there's no expectation of privacy in a public building like that.
And by the way, in Paulding County, we don't have metal detectors in our county building.
We don't have them anywhere, but other than courts.
The courthouse is mandated by state law.
Right.
But the county building, we used to have them. And when they told me to take off my watch, I said no. So I turned around and didn't pay my tag. The only thing I had on the tag was like a flatbed trailer. So I left, and a couple weeks later, not because I said anything, but they came out. I wouldn't pay the tax I owed them. But yeah, I wouldn't. They were acting like they were the airport, which is, oppressive as it is. But yeah, we don't have it. We don't have them here. So they're just the county building is gonna start searching your purse for your iPhone and tell you to put a piece of black tape over the camera. No.
That's a big old hell no.
Yeah, go fornicate yourself, Hoss.
Yeah. The thing is, I think that Marty Waters from the Evans County school system has probably taken the biggest beating from me in terms of press because of the things that he's done. I've, hammered him repeatedly because of his nonsense. And even he knew when to stop digging, just set the shovel down. And the fact that, the national media picked up on this and after she was smiling and they still didn't issue an apology and they're still digging in and just working behind the scenes to, negotiate the charges, and everything's quiet. But on the front end of things, Casey's the problem. He's gone to her advertisers in the past to try to get them to take ads down and just all of these things. And now this, so that you can prevent the public from recording interactions with you or from transparently reporting what's going on. You have no business being in public office.
Speaking of his office, Chattooga is one of only 9 Georgia counties out of 159 that have a sole commissioner, opposed to a county commission made up of 5 to 9 commissioners.
Yes.
We're the only state in the nation that still permits this type of governance. So the idea being, when there were 20 people living in the county, you couldn't get 5 people to serve. So you would have somebody, and everybody else would keep them in check with the elections. But he gets to dictate millage rate. Now, I guess he may have to listen and give the public a chance to speak, but he's the only one who decides the millage rate as far as the county goes. I mean, he decides on who sits on any zoning board, or any zoning decision is ultimately up to the board. At least it is here. So even if he has a P&Z board, he's the one who decides whether or not you can build your barn on your property. So he is the grand poobah of Chattooga County. And I cannot believe a week away from 2020, this is where we are, where we have one guy who is just kind of popular around the county, that no one really pays attention, and he's the one who's in charge of the ordinances. Who's the one who's in charge of writing the budget and approving the budget.
It's a disgrace.
It's fantastic. Not in the good way, but in the true definition, it's fantastic. I mean, it's a fantasy. I mean, this guy's had this job for 10 years. Why would he ever leave it? He can set his own salary. Just change it in the budget. There's no check and balance. Even in Paulding County, where we have 4 commissioners and a chairman, 3 are, going to go with the chairman most times, there's at least a check and balance. There's at least the chairman doesn't vote unless there's a tie. The chairman runs for re-election, but he has to answer in open session to the other commissioners. And I watched, my commissioner post 1, Ron Davis, read our chairman for filth one day, and the chairman had to sit and take it. This guy doesn't have that problem. And the sad fact is, just like I was last week before, the final thoughts, people pay more attention to what's going on in Washington than they do in their own county. They have no idea. They just know that, I know Winters. He's a good guy. I'll keep voting for him.
Right.
But yeah, anybody I've told, go Google, Google Casey's name, and everybody's come back, like, people I know from around the country, like, oh my God. I mean, there's equal outrage across the board, whether it's Democrat friends, Republican friends, Libertarian friends. Everybody is equally appalled. This is not a bar. This is not a go pour a drink, splash a drink in somebody's face. Ah, my God.
I've been talking about this for over a week at this point, and I still am just...
Oh, by the time this drops, it'll be 2 weeks almost that you've been talking about it.
Right, and I still don't know. It's still hard to comprehend, but...
It is. It's hard to comprehend. And that's why you've got papers, I know, news outlets from across the pond saying, what the hell is this? What's going on? I mean, we all thought Parliament was messed up. And the Brits are like, hey, what's going on in this really small county in Georgia? And that's how much outrage there is. And you highlighted when you've got the Washington Post, you've got New York Times, you've got papers from around the country and around the free world that are looking at this, wondering what the hell is the matter? What's the matter with us? And then, of course, you've got other places like, I'm sure, Venezuela and China. They're going, well, what's the problem? She should have been asking questions. And the fact is, I don't know if he was in France or not. I don't know what his salary is, what else he does for a living. I mean,
he makes about $100,000 a year, I believe. And
she's a nurse, probably making, close to the same. They can afford to go to France if they want to. All he had to say was, yeah, I was in France. We saved up our money and went. I mean, we traveled to Europe on occasion.
But why are you dumping on the press for that?
Well, no.
And why do you have the belief that, you ran for office? Do you, if it was a personal trip, fine, just say that. But you put yourself in this position of the public. You have to answer these questions. Like you wanted the job. You begged for the job. You've asked for the job over and over now because you've been reelected. So tell people why you deserve the job.
No, not just that. Is say I'm not going to. And my answer would be, I'm not going to justify my vacations. We saved up our money and went. We used whatever it is. I used airline miles to get there, and we used travel edge. Got a good deal. Or my wife makes a good living as a nurse. I don't do too bad in my position. We don't need to take county funds any more than the $100,000 I already take to do a job.
That's right.
But that's all he had to say was be a grown-up about it and go, everybody's entitled to take a vacation. Would you been happier if I was off in Panama City? No, we saved our money and went to France where we wanted to go. Unfortunately, you do have to justify stuff when you're a politician. Not say unfortunately, I'm just talking on the personal side. I was talking to a friend of mine who I was just making fun of him. He goes, man, I ain't got it like that. I said, literally 24 hours later, I see his update on Facebook, leaving for Rome. The big Rome, not the little Rome. So I was making fun of him for that, but you don't have to justify what you have. Unless it's, somehow you're making $100,000 a year and you're buying $5 million properties. But that's all you had to do is just come back pull a Trump, go right back at him and go, so? It's my money, I spent it. So let's move on, because we could sit there. I mean, look, and I've been talking about it since it happened. You've been talking about it since it happened, and you've been talking about it professionally too since it happened. But I've kind of appalled because being somewhat associated with All in Georgia, I was appalled more so than anything else. But having a perfectly lovely woman like that just treated like that in public, not that private would have been better, but it just bothered the hell out of me. But let's move on to more absurdity.
Okay, I'm ready.
Georgia's rural hospital tax credit program may not be all it's cracked up to be. You don't say.
Are you serious?
In 2016, the Georgia Assembly passed Senate Bill 258, which awards Georgia income tax credits to individuals and corporate taxpayers who contribute to qualified rural hospital organizations located right here. The Rural Hospital Tax Credit Program became effective in Georgia beginning January 1, 2017, and annually directs up to $60 million to rural facilities.
So first things first. Obviously, this was going to happen. I mean, it's just like the student scholarship program, which is a little bit different. But when you can take your income tax and put it toward a student scholarship organization, and then they take that to a private school, so kids in failing school districts can go to private schools. The difference there is that, the money is directly going to a child who's getting an education for it. Here, you're directing tax dollars to hospitals that aren't making ends meet in the first place, and the ones that are doing the worst are in extremely poor communities, and those people probably aren't redirecting their tax, they're not in a situation where they have an income tax where they can direct money. So you would be relying on a corporation or somebody from outside of the area who doesn't have a vested interest to redirect money back in there. The ones that are doing well, like where there's money in Evans County, like there is some money in Evans County, there is some money in Effingham County. Some of these other counties where the rural hospital tax credit program is really thriving, they have big money donors.
Right. And of course, you say charity starts at home. So if you're a big guy in Chattooga County, you'd want to give to that hospital. To Effingham County, you want to give to that hospital. Not only because you're going to do things close to home, but as a business person, the political and business optics of donating to your local hospital are much different from donating to a hospital.
That's right.
So if I can take a bunch of sick kids from Paulding County and get them all around Dr. Cool vans and say Dr. Cool donates $100,000 to, and Wellstar doesn't need it, Wellstar Paulding Hospital, and I can put a picture of me, that goes a lot further than saying I went down to Statesboro or went down to whatever other Spit Cup county you got down there and donated a bunch of money.
Right, and you can say all day long, I mean, yes, there are people who will send their money back to a community they came from or a community that they love or a community where they have family to help boost it up. There are people who do that, but there are also a crap ton of people who donate to charity because it looks good. And
there's a rule in business. Now look, I want you to separate business from your Christian ethics and morals. There's a rule in business which is never give anonymously. Now, in your life, you should always give without asking credit. It's always better for your soul to give and never ask for credit. That is not good for business. But yes, if you're just some rich guy who's sitting on a bunch of money, sold a bunch of property, and this is what you want to do with it. You can do it. The other complicating thing is a lot of these write-offs have been eliminated at the federal level. My state taxes are annoying. My federal taxes are oppressive. So if I'm looking for something to put my money into that's going to allow me to write it off, if I'm trying to get below a threshold, or I'm much better off financially putting that money into employee 401k plans, putting that money into, especially now that I can, depreciation is accelerated, into new equipment, into anything else besides sending money down to a hospital that's 4 hours away from me. I know that's selfish, and I know but these are the facts of living in a society, in a free society. Is you want the recognition. Now, could a Verizon do it and run that ad nationwide? Of course they could, but they also want that federal tax credit, the federal write-off, and
So there's another component to this too, which is the fact that there's a consulting firm called Hart, and it was a different entity, charitable organization, I guess you could call, and it was renamed in 2016 or 17, of course, about the time that this passed, and became the Hart Rural Tax Credit Program, or whatever you have. And they get 3% of any donation. And it used to be that they had contracted with, I think, 25% of the hospitals, and then it was 50%. And if you go to the DCA website where all this, the reporting requirements are, they are, it says, and you go to their Heart Program website, it says that they are, for 2019, I think there are 58 eligible hospitals, and they are the approved contractor for 58 of those hospitals. So that means that of the $60 million, I think last year, or in 2018, there was $58,777,000 in donations to rural hospitals. They got 3% for just coordinating the donations.
Not bad.
No.
Not bad. Look, government has the anti-Midas touch. Government touches things that are gold and turns them into crap. Mm-hmm. And I had a conversation with a physician, and this is back when the Affordable Care Act was first a thing. And I said, well, maybe we could get it repealed. And he's like, you don't understand, Dave. The damage is done. As, getting the crap back in the horse is damn near impossible. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that more government interventions not going to help anything. In my expert opinion of having observed government my entire life. The other thing is you're not, when you give to a student for a scholarship, you're not just throwing it into the school administration to do whatever they want with it. And as you said, you're directing that money is, I am providing education for this one person. Now, if we did that, if we somehow figured out how to do that for individual patients or groups of patients, or I want to go and help all the cancer patients at this hospital or something like that, that's doable. You'd almost have to form your own 501(c) to do it.
Right. It's, I won't say that it was done with bad intentions. I don't believe that.
Then again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Absolutely, but I think it was muddied. This idea was muddied by the fact that the guy who championed it was planning to run for lieutenant governor, and one of his biggest backers, and financially and personally, is in the healthcare industry. I don't think that can be ignored. So it might have good intentions and it may help these hospitals some, but it's not solving their problems. And, these hospitals can pay things like debt, which I agree with. Like it's very complicated when you really dive into it, but they have short-term debt or outstanding accounts payable where people either just never pay or they didn't get the full reimbursement from Medicaid. I have no problem with them using the tax credit to make actual costs, like just offset them and make them whole on services they provided. If we're going to offer this tax credit, I think that's a great reason to do it. Some of them have used it to improve infrastructure, which, and to buy equipment, which is a fine line, but I think that by and large it's being used appropriately. And one of the biggest problems I know that we have is some of our smaller hospitals don't have the equipment or the ability to treat anything more than like broken arms and colds and the flu and things like that.
Oh, sure. When you've got somebody with an MI, a heart attack, and you've got to move them 2 hours down the road because you don't have the imaging software or imaging technology to do a heart cath. That's a huge thing for the community. What would you think? And it just came to me of merging the two concepts of taking the education and applying it to medical and making doctors offering kids going through medical school essentially an indentured servitude. We'll pay for your schooling.
We already do that.
Well, we have
on the back end.
Yeah, we do on the back end, but do it on the front. Is offered that tax credit to the same idea, the individuals, to do a scholarship with the obligation that you're going to serve this community for 5, 6, 7, whatever, however many years it is, depending on the cost of the education. And the Army does it. The Navy does it. You want you want the Army to pay for your medical school. You're gonna do your time. God, every time I talk about the Army, it sounds like prison.
The ideas that you bring up are not bad ideas. I think it's not that I have an issue with. I think it's more along the lines that, it's not like what I was getting at with the debt was there's another problem with it in that a lot of them are paying personnel costs, which I know you want to have good doctors and you want to have adequate people to serve others. But when you're talking about the debt, like let's say that you have $200,000 a year in debt and you get $100,000 in tax credits. Sure, it's helpful, but it's not actually fixing the situation. And this isn't going to fix the situation when you have a cap, when you have limited resources, when you have, like you said, you're not getting the return on investment because you can't write it off the same way anymore. There's just so many aspects of this that it's a nice idea, but it's not actually fixing the problem. It's just putting it off and putting off the inevitable, which is closure. And until we're willing to address that and the things that go along with that, like it just looks nice.
Well, at some point you have to burn it down.
It's pretty darn close.
Yeah, it certainly is down there. At some point, the problem with the slow burn is we do keep searching for government solutions to just patch this, just patch that, patch this community, patch that community. Things are going great in Metro Atlanta, but they're not going great in Southeast Georgia, Southwest Georgia, for that matter. Talk about poor.
God, yeah.
So I don't know what the solution is. As far as and my idea was not so much of fixing the problem, but if these doctors had indentured servitude, there would be no bills as far as the doctor's side of the bills, and even possibly even nurse side of the bills that would be past due. That the sum would be zero. Now, as far as the facilities and all that go, yeah, I mean, if people don't pay their bill and Medicaid doesn't pay the bill, I mean, the hospitals are going unpaid. And if you're a Wellstar, why in the hell would you go and open up in one of these counties and bring a facility when there's no capitalist reason to do it? There's just no benefit to doing it. I mean, I know at one point the hospital in Moultrie, and it may be gone now. I haven't been to Moultrie in probably a decade, but that was about to close. They couldn't operate it. There was just not enough money. There were too many poor and not enough rich to support it.
We're in trouble, and the federal government isn't helping. The state government isn't helping, and I would suffer a little bit more if it meant they would just hurry up and fix it, like let it go off the cliff and rebuild it quickly from there. But like you said, it's the slow burn is
it's not coming back quickly. All those physicians that work for themselves are all out of business now. That they can't afford to stay in business. They're all working for somebody else, and that somebody else dictates where they go. So if Dave Roberts, cardiologist, just wanted to pack up and go down to South Georgia, there's no means for me to do that because the staff I'd have to put together just to practice what I do. And being a cardiologist, I could do it with a small staff if I didn't have to have 15 people dedicated to billing insurance. So that's what I'm talking about. It's broken, and you're never getting the crap back of the horse. Is all these physicians that used to work for themselves are now working for somebody else. They're working in a clinic. They're working for a large practice. They're working for a hospital because they simply can't afford being small business people and being a doctor. It's not affordable. And I know it's hard for people to believe that doctors are struggling, but that's what happened. So anyway, now that I got my soapbox, Jessica, do you have a closing thought besides everything's horrible and everybody's bad?
No, that about sums it up. I think you were going to mention one other horrible thing before we sign off.
Both articles of impeachment passed along party lines. I think there were 3 Democrats that voted against impeachment. Otherwise, it flew through. The debate was, from what I saw of it, first of all, it's not a debate. I mean, I lettered it in debate. And this is not a debate. Going up and saying, I'm going to vote against it, and this is why. I'm going to vote for it, and this is why. And just waiting your turn to get your 30-second soundbite is not a friggin' debate. But I digress. This is destructive to future presidencies. Just doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. If you get a hostile Congress, they don't need an actual crime. Because I've read the articles. There's no actual crime. Mm-hmm. that he's accused of, that they can. This is going to be a problem going forward now that this has been established. So,
yeah.
With that, Merry Christmas.
Happy.
From all of us at the podcast, for Jessica Szilagyi, for Eric Cumby, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a very Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week.